Istrolid is a game made entirely on HTML about designing and fighting with spaceships. Unfortunately, its player base could be described as humble, and so could be the number of guides available for it. So I took this burden upon myself. Let's just jump right into it. Istrolid's main game mode is point control. It's a randomized map with 2 spawns for each team and a few control points. You generate money over time. More points controlled equals more money generated per tick. To capture a point, your ship has to stay on it for a few seconds. Size and number of ships doesn't matter. But to capture a point, it has to be not occupied by the enemy. But what if there are enemies on your God-given point? Well, then there is going to be a problem. But how do we design a ship to kill them? There's many pieces you may build your ship from, and not much explained about them. That's why we'll start with basics. In this video, I will try to teach you basics on how to design ships, their role in your fleet, and how to code them. So hopefully, I will stop seeing shit like this.
So you must go.
Keep in mind that this video might be biased on how I enjoy making
damn boats.
I'll try to keep it fast and clean though. Before we begin, quick rundown of stats and what they mean. Self-explanatory, the amount of potential damage your ship can dish out per second. Your ship's total hit points. Theoretical range at which your ship starts shooting enemies. Some weapons with slow-moving projectiles will try to predict enemy movement and will shoot before in the range, so keep that in mind. Max movement speed of your ship. Total arc of all weapons on your ship, we'll explain this later. How fast it can change directions. Total weight, it affects what engines are more or less adequate for your ship. Hitbox, all ships have round hitboxes, size of it depending on how you assemble the ship. Amount of energy your ship can generate every second. Energy needed for moving your ship per second. How much energy your ship can store. Energy needed for firing all mounted weapons per second. Okay, let's get on with basic modules. Armor. Simple, it gives HP. There are 3 types of armor modules: heavy, volumetric, and ultralight. Heavy is weighty. It gives a good amount of HP but weights your ship down. Volumetric has less HP, but it's lighter and cheaper. Ultralight combines HP of heavy and weight of volumetric armor, but it costs a lot. Most of the other modules also give small amounts of HP, but I won't be talking about it in their sections, since it's not their main purpose. Armor will always be the main source of most of your ship's hit points. Energy storage and generation. Energy is what your ship uses for moving around, using its weapons, and for other, more niche things. There are 3 main module types for generating and storing energy, them being batteries, reactors, and solar panels. Batteries, being most basic, give you a good amount of storage, but can't recharge on their own. They are light and very cheap. Reactors produce most energy while taking the same amount of space as batteries. Their storage capabilities are low, they are heavy and expensive. Solar panels generate a good amount of energy but can't store any of it, requiring usage in conjunction with a battery or reactor. They are light, pretty cheap, but take the most amount of space, making your ship bigger and therefore easier to Thrusters. Thrusters are what your ship uses for moving around. Moving around, just like in real life, costs energy. Walmart. Every thruster has its own weight class, being more efficient in ships of a certain weight. Scout and fighter thrusters are side grades, most efficient when used in light class ships. Fighter is faster and eats up more energy than a scout and is more than twice as expensive. Cruiser thruster is best utilized in medium weight ships. They're kinda boring. Bulk and large bulk thrusters, again, are side grades of another. Best used from the point when cruisers are falling off. And well, I guess put on the one and gone type of unit, cause recharging energy ate up by that thing is ridiculous. Wings. Wings are what your ship uses for changing its direction of flight. They are not really that interesting, but they will show back at a later point of the video. So, for now let's just say that the bigger and more expensive the wing, the faster it lets you to turn. Light ships need from 1 to 2 of smaller wings, while the heavier the ship gets it will need more big wings to keep up, but fast turn speed is not that detrimental to them. Let's move on to specialized modules. Energy transfer. Energy transfer is a supportive module. Energy transfer lets your ship recharge other units around it in a circular zone. Ships with energy transfer module are called rechargers. Keep in mind when designing a recharger that it will have to have enough energy generation to sustain itself plus bunch of dumbasses around it. Batteries can be of great use in recharger ships since it allows them to store a lot of energy for later, when some lost boy will need his Mountain Dew refill. Shield generators. Shields in Istrolid, just like in any other game, serve as a rechargeable pussy repellent. SP take damage before the HP and they will recharge over time at the cost of energy. While there is only one kind of shield generators, the size does matter. If we put 4 small shield generators on our ship, it will have more SP, slower recharge rate, and will be cheaper than a 1 big shield generator. Shield generators actually share this size relationship with energy reactors. Cloak generator. Cloak generator turns your ship invincible over time at the cost of, again, energy. Being invincible stops your ship from being targeted and makes it dodge every kind of attack, except AoE. Time to get invincible is affected by heftiness of your ship and number of cloak generators installed on it. Your ship loses invisibility when it attacks, runs out of energy, is too heavy for your cloak generators, runs into a stasis field, or the enemy gets an ass-sniffing distance of it. Personally, I would put cloak generator on lighter ships, so I would recommend using solar panels and batteries for energy, since panels weigh practically nothing, and enough of them may stop your ship from being decloaked due to lack of energy. An increase of hitbox hurts not as bad thanks to properties of being invincible. Jump engine. Jump engine lets your ship teleport a small distance, after which module will need to recharge at the cost of energy. The speed at which it will recharge and distance it will jump is, similarly to cloak generators, dependent on weight of your ship and number of jump engines installed on it. Jump engines can actually be used to quickly change directions of ships with slow turning speed. I wouldn't recommend using it on AI ships since they are pretty wasteful with it. Steering the jump engine ship can take some time to get used to. At the end of the day, I wouldn't recommend putting the jump engine on your ship unless you really know what you're doing. Stasis field.
The fog is coming?
Stasis field module generates a circular zone around it that slows down enemy ships by 50% and uncloaks them at the cost of absolutely nothing. Since the zone appears around the module, I would recommend putting it at the front of the unit. Stasis is good for dealing with pesky enemy cloakers, also as a niche use against swarms. Warheads. Warheads are used in kamikaze-type ships. There are 3 kinds of them: shaped, explosive, and EMP. They are supposed to explode your ship on impact, destroying it and triggering all warheads installed on it.
Come on, you're not an intellectual. You're
They will also trigger if your ship is simply killed by enemy fire. The more warheads is installed, the deadlier the explosion will be. We will talk about kamikaze ships later. Shaped warheads deal a lot of damage, concentrated in a small area. They are the heaviest and cheapest of warheads. Explosive warheads deal damage in a larger AoE while being weaker than shaped ones. Tad bit more expensive than shaped, but lighter. EMP warheads don't deal damage on impact, but instead drain enemy ships' energy. Size of EMP blast is similar to explosive warheads. They are most expensive by a long shot, but also are the lightest. Alright, that's done. Before we get to weapons, let's talk about turret mounts. Mounts are used for installing weaponry on your ship. Weapon installed on the mount will inherit its arc. If the enemy is in the range of the ship, but out of the arc of the weapon, your ship will have to turn to get the enemy within the arc before it can shoot. Turn speed, as said before, is dependent on weight and wings installed on your ship. So I would recommend that if your ship has low overall arc of the weapons, give it an adequate amount of wings so enemies won't run circles around them. Basic turret mounts. Basic turret mounts are what we're going to be calling 30, 90, 200, 270, and 360 turret mounts, their names being the degrees of the arc they give to weapons installed. There's no point in explaining every single one of them, but remember that the higher the degree of the arc is, the more expensive and heavier the mount will be. So keep that in mind when designing your ships. Specialized turret mounts. There are 3 specialized turret mounts: Micro 360, Spinal, and Demi-Spinal. Micro 360 turret mount is cheaper and lighter than its normal counterpart, but it decreases the range of your weapon by 25%. Spinal turret mount adds flat 500 meters to your weapon's range. It gives only 20 degrees of arc, increases energy consumption of weapons installed on it by 25%, is heavy as fuck, and costs about the same amount of dollarinos as 270 turret mount. Demi-Spinal turret mount is a dollar store version of Spinal. It adds flat 250 meters to your weapon's range, gives 20 degrees of arc just like the Spinal variant, and increases energy consumption by 10%, but it's still pretty heavy. It also is pretty cheap. We can finally move on to weapons. Weapons are what your ship uses to shoot shit. This also consumes energy. There's 19 of them, so you will have to excuse me for not going into nerd territory with every one of them. I think it's a good place to point out that, while I may recommend using something in a particular way, you should still try to experiment with it as you see fit. I'm just telling you about what I've learned along the way. Let's talk about stats first. We'll be using Plasma Turret as an example since it has all basic weapon attributes, being DPS, which we already talked about and is pretty much the same deal, but just for the one weapon alone. Damage of a singular shot of the weapon. Range, same deal as with DPS. Reload time, yeah. How much energy it costs to shoot. Similar to DPS, but with energy cost. How fast a projectile will move. Some of the other weapons will have some extra stats, or will be lacking them, such as hitscan weapons won't have projectile speed, but I will point them out, so don't worry my little thick-headed gamers. I think a good weapon to start with is Torpedo Launcher. Torpedo Launcher is a very basic and cheap weapon. It's mid across the board. It shoots a missile on a straight line that deals low damage, has good range, reloads occasionally, is pretty cheap to shoot, and has an okay projectile speed. Missile Launcher. Missile Launcher is similar to Torpedo. Main difference being that its missile will lock onto enemies and chase them. It has slightly lower range, reloads almost twice as fast, is twice as heavy, and twice as expensive to shoot. Its missile is also slightly faster than Torpedo's. Sidewinder. Sidewinder is an interesting one. It shoots 2 rockets from the sides of the mount which, similarly to missile launcher projectiles, will lock onto target. This makes them even harder to dodge for the enemy. Sidewinder has a long reload speed and low range for a missile weapon, but it also has the fastest projectile out of them. Its weight and energy cost is in the middle ground between Torpedo and missile launcher. Artillery gun. Artillery gun is a long-range, high-damage AoE weapon with very slow reload speed and sluggish projectiles. They are actually the slowest in the game. But its projectiles also have the largest AoE. Artillery is very heavy and expensive to shoot. One of its unique attributes is exact timed explosion. This means that while the projectile travels to its destination, it won't collide with any enemy. Imagine this as if the artillery shells were lobbed over the battlefield and land in their destination. The point where it lands is also indicated with a red circle which shows you the AoE radius of the projectile when it reaches its target. Another attribute is the minimum range. It means that if the enemy is too close to you, the weapon won't shoot. Now, if you have a keen eye, you might have noticed that all weapons covered up to this point also have the missile attribute. I was saving this for now, so we can talk about point defense.
Am I some
What?
sort of
No,
clown to you?
I hate my job.
Remember those weapons? Pretty cool, right? Well, fuck those. Because point defense can straight up delete projectiles with the missile attribute. Standard variant fires at hits can't attack, so it can't even miss. Point defense is light, reloads faster than a torpedo launcher, has the same energy cost, and a very low range, which is good, because it still attacks enemies, and that could cause point defense to be reloading at an inconvenient time. Heavy point defense shoots a projectile that can delete as many missiles as it comes in contact with, before fizzling out. It won't penetrate ships though. It reloads at the same pace as torpedo launcher, still has small range and is, well, heavy. Its projectile is very fast, which may not be ideal for taking out as much missiles as possible per shot, but we will fix this later. It also is pretty expensive to shoot. Oh, and it will still attack enemies if in range. Well, now, since the missile tomfoolery is behind us, let's talk about the rest of the weapons. Light and heavy beam. Light beam is a simple cute little thing. Boasting low range, small damage, quick reload speed, low energy cost and lightweight, it's perfect for some easily disposable ships. Same as with its older brother, its damage is instant. Heavy beam is a beefed up version of the light one. It deals mediocre damage, has mid-range, and reloads reasonably fast. Its main appeal though is still the unavoidable hits can attack. This beam is very heavy, and consumes gargantuan amounts of energy. So, you know, consider that before putting it on your dollar store ship. Fusion ring.
Oh my god! Dude, the thing that everybody... the onion ring! I got an onion...
Fusion ring is a close-range burst weapon. It fires a high-damage ring projectile at a very fast speed, after which it will have a long reload period. Its energy cost is on the higher end, and its weight is medium. It's pretty versatile, can be used for one-and-gun disposable ships, or used as close-range security measures for others. Plasma turret.
Ghostbuster shots, okay? Real fun, real simple.
Easiest way to understand plasma turret module is looking at it as a premium version of the torpedo launcher. It fires as fast as torpedo, deals more than twice the damage, has faster projectiles, and most importantly, it doesn't have the missile attribute. The disadvantages of plasma are lower range, 4 times the weight, and 4 times more energy cost to shoot. It's good for bypassing point defenses of the enemy, with some nice damage to add. Heavy flak. There's no light flak, so, I'll just call it flak. Flak is a close-range, AoE, anti-fighter weapon. It has the exact timed explosion attribute, just like artillery. Its AoE is even the same size as that of arty, but it doesn't show the indicator of where the projectiles will land. Not like it would matter though, cause the small range, fast projectiles, and AoE make it close to impossible to dodge either way. Flak is heavy and relatively cheap to shoot, which is good, because it does it fast. Its damage is low, but it more than makes up in the other aspects. It's good as security measure to combat enemy fighters, or as a swarm cleanup. EMP gun. EMP gun, similarly to its warhead counterpart, drains energy of the enemy ship on hit. It will drain about the same amount of energy as a singular EMP warhead, per shot. It also additionally deals damage. Actually, it's the same damage as the torpedo launcher, and it reloads at practically the same speed. EMP as medium range is 3 times as expensive to shoot compared to torpedo, and its projectiles are very fast. The module itself is among the lightest of the weapons.
Yoink.
Orb launcher.
Balls all in your face. Fortnite balls all in your face. Unlock your jaw, lock 'em, unlock 'em, unlock your jaw, unlock 'em for the Fortnite balls.
Orb launcher is a high-range weapon, filling similar role to that of artillery. It's very weird, so hold on. It doesn't shoot a projectile, but rather a casing with it. The casing itself doesn't interact with anything, it lingers for a second after which it will release an orb projectile. This orb is simultaneously the fastest and weakest combat projectile in the entire game. This speed is deceitful though. Since every orb has to linger for an entire second, it's very easy to dodge. Orb launcher is almost as cheap to shoot as torpedo, and reloads quickly. While it tried to be a single target, non-point defensible, capital ship buster alternative to artillery, it turned out as more of a dollar store pepper spray. Phase bomb launcher. Phase bomb launcher, that's my kind of shit. It deals the highest amount of damage in the game. Its projectile, similarly to that of the orb launcher, hovers in the air for a second, which makes it easy to dodge from nimbler ships, since when ready to go, it moves at the same speed as a torpedo missile. This makes it high risk, high reward, opposed to other weapons. It has the exact timed explosion and AoE indicator attributes, just like artillery. Although, AoE of phase bomb is much smaller. It's heavy, cheap to shoot for what it can do, and has an okay reload speed for what it can do. Great for busting some major ships too slow or uncaring to dodge it. Autocannon. Autocannon fires 5 pellets in a rapid burst. Single pellet deals a... Let me check. 8 damage, so one autocannon pellet deals the same amount of damage as a whole orb projectile ball. The pellets do have some spread while coming out. Combine this with the low range of the autocannon, and you have a good fighter weapon, close-range security tool, or a juggernaut, if you get a little bit creative. Gravity push and pull. Push and pull waves are so similar. Despite having exact opposite of others' utility, I don't think it's worth explaining both individually. Yes, push has slightly higher range and damage, but that's about it. As mentioned in their names, they either push or pull your enemy. They both have multi-hit attribute, meaning they can hit and affect multiple targets at a time. Both are light, cheap to shoot, have very fast projectiles. Unfortunately, their reload is on the slower side. Flamethrower. Flamethrower throws flames, and I have no idea how the afterburn works. It also can hit multiple enemies. Good as a harassment tool, or against swarms, I guess. Tesla turret. Welp, that's all the weapons covered. Now, the only thing weaponry-based we have left is... weapon mods. Weapon mods let you modify your armament stats, usually with some drawbacks. Their usefulness vary on the weapon and the role you choose it for. To use them properly, you need to put them around the mount of the weapon of your choice. You can have a maximum of 6 mods around one mount. Weapon mods might be what makes or breaks your ship. But remember, that doesn't mean you have to use them all the time to make something effective. Now, let's quickly move through them. Targeting subsystem. It increases your ship's range by 20% and adds flat 80 meters to it at the cost of slower reload speed. It's heavy and expensive. Reloader. Simply helps your weapon to reload faster. The only drawback of it is its cost, being the most expensive. Overcharger. Increases damage at the cost of reload speed. Speed coils. Increase the speed of the projectile weapons by 50% and adds flat 50 meters of range. Very light and among the cheapest. Dampener. Decreases energy cost of shooting the weapon at the expense of projectile speed. Cheap. No overkill. Stops your weapon from shooting if it would kill the enemy twice in one shot. It is the cheapest and the lightest mod.
Three, two, one,
Go.
For a start, let's quickly explain manual ship commands. To make your ship move, you need to select it first. You can select ships by left-clicking them. If you want to select all ships of the same type, you left-click it twice. Alternatively, you can drag left-click to select all ships in the zone. Right-click to a zone to make all your selected ships move there. You also can drag right-click to force your ships to make a formation. Now, that's pretty basic, right? Well, that's where these bad boys come in. The first one is just some nerd shit we don't care about. The second one stops all moving selected ships. The third one, though, is a little more interesting. It makes selected ships focus fire an enemy you clicked on. It works about how you would expect. Or, it can be used to follow a friendly unit. You can make rechargers follow your main ship, or, if you get a little more creative, you can make a dangerous conga line. Next one just auto-destructs all selected ships, yeah. This one places a rally point. All ships spawn from this point and will move to it. Thank you all for arriving. Does anybody here know anything about coding?
Actually.
Well, does anybody here knows anything about coding? No! Well, that's great. So, let's start from the bottom up. While I understand that making full-on AI fleet might not be what you are interested in, understanding even the basics of AI might help you automate some simpler tasks, so your big head might focus on solving even bigger problems. Well, while fooling around in ship design, you might have noticed this little bastard. This is your AI enable button. It turns on AI of all ships in your fleet. But for now it won't do anything, cause your ships don't have an AI. Once you click it, 2 more buttons will appear. This one enables AI debugging bubbles. It will allow you to see what your ship thinks at any given moment you perf. It works only in single player though, so no stealing code from other players. Built-in AI is fair game though. And finally, this is your AI editor. It allows to see and modify commands of ship you have selected. You can choose commands from the tabs on the left by clicking on them. The higher the command is in the command chain, the more it will be prioritized by your ship, excluding fielding commands. Most of the commands are fairly simple and easy to understand, so I won't bother with explaining what go to enemy spawn does, unless I have something interesting to say about it. So basically you have 2 main categories of commands. The first, smaller one is fielding commands. They basically tell your ship when to spawn. I think the first one is fairly easy to understand. AI will field 2 ships of this type at the start of the match. But the second one is where the stairs start. What the hell is priority? Well, if, let's say, we have 2 ships with priorities and costs like so. And we have money for the cheaper one with less priority. The AI won't spawn it until the more expensive one with higher priority is fielded. Oh man, okay, this one spawns ships if another ship in a chosen slot is spawned. Each fleet has 10 slots, numbered from left to right. So, if we set it like so. For each fielded ship from slot 1, the AI will try to field 3 of these ships. The AI will try to spawn that ship if a condition is met. You can change the condition by clicking on it. The point defense need condition will spawn your ship if the enemy has fielded ships with missile-type weapons, which we covered not so long ago. The fighter counter need condition will spawn it if enemy has fielded small, nimble ships. Cloak counter will spawn it if the enemy has fielded cloaked ships, duh. As for this number, you have to fiddle with it yourself to get the right amount of ships fielded for amount of conditions met, since I don't really understand it too. And lastly, it will try to field this ship if you have accumulated set amount of schmuckaroos. You can mix and match all of these commands on one ship, so the AI will respond to what is happening on the battlefield. And that would be it for field commands. They are nice. And that would be it for field commands. They are nicely separated from all the other shit we will get into right now. We will now move into what I will be calling behavioral commands. The first subgroup we hop into is movement commands, and the first command of that group is capture command points. It does what you would expect it to. Great low priority command that acts as free time activity while your ship doesn't have anything else to do. The capture option makes ships throw themselves en masse at nearest enemy point. Good for ships that want to stay close to others of its kind. Spread to will make your ship spread to points while avoiding capturing same one at the same time. Good for designated cappers. Guard makes ships stay at a captured point. Only useful for designated point guards. Protect will make your ships have a third eye that senses when friendly command point is being captured and act accordingly. With GOTO, I can only advise avoiding army middle options, as they are very unreliable and may lead to your ship sitting in bumfuck nowhere cause some dumbass is chasing a capper out of the bounds of the map. Oh, and also go to enemy home point is good for giga ships, slow and bulky units that act as a kind of payload, if you will, that the rest of your fleet plays around as it slowly pushes the front line. Stay in range of friendly units. No point in explaining, I don't like it. Stay in range of specific slot units. Now we're getting somewhere. Possibilities with this are plentiful. Finds its use in payloads, kiters, carriers, swarms, and some smaller squads in casual fleets. I could talk about it all day. Stay away. Yeah, it makes your ships stay away from ships of chosen slot. I rarely use this, mainly in swarms to nerf the AoE damage. Finish player orders, it does what it says, and I also have a limited, non-existing knowledge on this. Wake up. Attack commands determine how and when the ship should have engaged enemies. There are only 3 of them, but the devil lays in the details. Attack enemy within set range. Attack option. The ship will chase an enemy and once in range it will stop and shoot. It's important to notice that ships attack and stop when enemy gets in any range, so that may lead to wasting potential close range DPS. Flee. Does exactly what you think. The ship will run away from enemies at chosen range, good for ships who don't want to be close to enemy. Kite. More complicated version of attack. When your ship gets in range to shoot an enemy, it will shoot and then retreat. This is main ingredient command to ships known as kiters, one of the most annoying, effective, and boring ships. Ram. It will try to kiss an enemy, ensuring all mounted weapons will have their chance to shoot an enemy. Pretty straightforward and good for tanky, not tremendously slow ships. Bomb. Ram, but they don't stop at kissing. Run by. Basically a drive-by. Circle. Your ship will orbit an enemy. Use of at least 200 degrees mount is recommended. It's very aesthetic. Backstab. Your ship will try to stay behind the enemy and attack it. Good on fighters who want to punish ships without 360 degrees of arc. Jump engine is good for it too. Wiggle. Ship will have unpredictable movement while approaching the enemy to potentially throw off enemy projectiles. My experience with it is limited. Stay at range. This ship will avoid getting inside enemy range while attacking. Next command is a bit more sophisticated, in that it only engages with enemies that meet certain expectations. You can combo 2 expectations, or only have 1. Behavior options are the same as for the previous command. Most of those expectations are pretty straightforward, so I will skip right into those that might need a bit of explanation. Stronger, as far as I know, means that enemy has more guns. Respectively weaker has less guns. As PD means that it has point defenses installed. As for brawling value, reaching a conclusion on what it is a feat, so I wish you luck. And the last attack command is pretty much the same as previous. Main difference is this. You can set a predetermined value. Instead of comparing properties to the ship itself, it engages with enemy units that meet set value. And last category of commands we have is the defensive/miscellaneous commands. Avoid DPS danger areas. Avoids going into enemy range if its DPS exceeds set limit. Avoid over set amount of damage shots. Good for when you don't want your ship to be turned into scrap by bazillion damage phase bomb, but ignore torpedoes and such. Also, you can drop it to 1 if you want your ship to try to dodge every single projectile it encounters. This is the same thing, but you can exclude point defensible projectiles. What to do when energy threshold is met? That's how I would set it. Small, battery-only ships should seek a recharger, unless they are disposable. Small solar panel powered ships should go back to home point since they recharge a bit slower, and thanks to this they won't overburden their local recharger. Big generator ships should rest since they usually should have a recharger behind them if they have poor energy economy. And this is really only useful on rechargers. I would mostly put it on more agile or self-dependable rechargers. If you have a slow and lame recharger, I would recommend making other ships come to it. And, yep, that's all I have for the commands. As for ship roles, after reconsideration, the only unit I could consider mandatory is the capper. As you now know, Istrolid's main game mode is, and ultimately you win by capturing all points. So, yeah, go build stuff on your own. Or, you can study designs of others. I mean, if there's anyone to still study designs online. Alternatively, I can offer you an exercise. Pick one of the game's AI, let's say, Turtle Fence. It's a torpedo-heavy fleet with shielded battering ram. Try to make a fleet, manual or AI-controlled, that can win against Turtle Fence in 2 to 3 minutes. I would love to see the video. Then repeat the process with another game AI, figure them out, and counter them. Then, maybe you can try defeating your own fleet if it is AI-controlled. This will help you see weaknesses of your previous fleets and improve them. And wait. Yep. That seems to be everything. If you were here only for the tips, you can go now. Otherwise, this thing took much longer than I originally anticipated, and I would like to thank my homies for the support and help. I couldn't do this without you. And well, that's the end. Remember to take care of yourself. Well, bye.
Wszystko można zrobić z tego. Wąsy, czapeczkę, pingle i nawet takie gówno tu na nas, żeby się nie opalić. Zajebiste. Co to? Jakiś paproch.